Welcome everyone to the Bing Ads webinar on the science of brand bidding. My name is MJ DePalma and I will be your host today. This is the first webinar with our Advertiser Science team, and we are excited to share their findings and methods so you can achieve more with your advertising dollars and help you earn that bonus. Before we begin, let's review some housekeeping items to enhance your experience with us today. Our webinar console that you see is customizable on your side, where you can click the content widgets that you see on your screen and move them around or size them for your screen size. You can expand your slide area by clicking on the maximize icon on the top right of your slide area, or by dragging the bottom right corner of that slide area. If you have any technical difficulties, please click on the help widget. It has a question mark icon and covers common technical issues. We recommend, if you can, to leave all the widgets as they are so that you have the ability to see all the great resources and Q&A at the same time. For Q&A, please feel free to input your questions as you have them, but for the most part, we'll be getting to that list of questions at the end of the webinar, and we will try to answer as many as possible. Any questions we don't have time to answer today, we'll post a blog. Actually, Francis here, who I'll be introducing in a moment, will post a blog with all the frequently asked questions and any unanswered questions, and you can find that at bingads.com/blog. You'll also see a resource widget in the upper right corner, and we'll refer to that during the webinar. So go ahead right now, and there's an Excel icon to download a Ttest spreadsheet, so you'll be ready to follow along later in the presentation. And also for your convenience, the deck is already available for download there as well. Also, there are links to stay in touch with us in the deck, so you'll get that later. And lastly, there's a Twitter widget that will enable you to tweet right from the webinar console with the hashtags BingAdWebinars and Bing Ads, so we can see those streaming live, and those will appear right there on the right-hand side. An on-demand version of the webcast will be available approximately 4 days after the webcast and can be accessed at the link at the bottom of all the slides in our deck. It's our Bing Ads YouTube channel's webinar playlist. And the last housekeeping item before we get started, we would love your participation in our survey at the end of the webinar so that we can improve in any way possible. Let's begin by introducing who we have on the webcast today. As you heard, my name is MJ DePalma, and I'll be your host today, and I'll be monitoring the Q&A and making sure as much as possible as things could move along smoothly. And then we also have Lars Hirsch, our Director of Advertiser Science here at Bing Ads. Super excited to have him today and be working with him. And we have Francis Donegan-Ryan, our SEM Pro Marketing Manager, SEM guru. So really happy to have you both here today talking about the science of brand bidding.
Great, excited to be here.
Woohoo! Let's get into it. The agenda, here's what you're going to learn today. Super cool stuff. The Bing Ads Advertiser Science team's overall brand experiment results, and we've done it in a couple of verticals, so we'll take a look at that. It'll be retail, finance, and travel. And also, even more exciting, I think, is how to design your own brand term experiment to really finally put to rest, that office debate, to bid on your brand terms or not to bid on your brand terms. So we'll teach you how to actually look at your own data and decide that. So the most important part of it is to make sure that your experiment is statistically relevant. And so in the upper right-hand corner, like I had mentioned earlier, you'll download that statistical relevance worksheet called the Ttest template for download. And it has the formulas already built in, so that's super cool. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for you guys to get the most out of your advertising dollars. So without further ado, I want to pass it on to Lars to tell us exactly what advertiser science is.
Yeah, thank you, MJ. So my name is Lars Hirsch. I lead a group called Advertiser Science, and we are the data science team for the Bing Ads business. And in the Advertiser Science group, we have 3 main priorities. Number 1 is to analyze and interpret advertiser behavior and impact relative to the marketplace dynamics. And second, we identify, test, and measure strategies that help our advertisers to take full advantage of the Bing Ads platform. And finally, we enable sales channels and partners to leverage data insights to prioritize, drive efforts against the most meaningful activities and campaign changes. So we've been working on this question about brand queries and brand ads for a long time now. And we started off thinking about that there wasn't really a consensus among our advertisers. Does it make sense to bid on brand terms, or does it not make sense? Of course, the question is, does brand terms give additional clicks, or does it primarily cannibalize clicks that you would have gotten for free if you didn't bid through organic search? So we really wanted to understand the dynamics here and really discover the truth through scientific methods. So let's dive into the brand analysis. So we compared two scenarios. We compared brand queries that had a brand ad from the brand owner present, and we compared that to brand queries where there wasn't a brand ad from the brand owner present. And when we talk about brand ads, maybe we should specify what we talk about. So it's a query, when we talk about brand queries, it's a query that contains either the name of, like the brand name of the company, it could be a product, it could be that brandname.com, it could be that plus a modifier such as kayak flights or Expedia flights. But we only include queries that have above a certain threshold number. So we look at all brand queries on a platform that has at least 1,000 searches per month.
Great. Thanks, Lars. That's setting our stage. And so what we wanted to show you is the click reality. So what happened and what were the results that we saw? So we looked at one of our advertisers, who's a social network, and when we looked at what happened when someone searches for their brand or modifiers of their brand and they were not running a brand ad campaign, they would capture about 65% of the clicks resulted from that search. When they were running a brand ad campaign, they were able to not only increase the organic results, clicks, but also ensure that they were capturing 100% of the clicks when someone searched for their brand. So this obviously was a really impressive growth for them to be able to move from only capturing about 65% of the clicks to 100%. When we did the same test and we looked at another one of our advertisers who's a wireless brand, what we saw is when they did not run a brand ad campaign, again, they were only capturing just over 60% of the clicks, but not only that, they were losing clicks to their competitors. So they were losing clicks to their competitor's organic listing, and their competitor was running a brand campaign of their own, and they were able to really take a chunk of clicks from our advertiser's own brand name. And so what we saw when they started including their own brand ad, they were able to retain almost, looks like 99% of the clicks there and only lost a sliver to their competitor's ad. We ran the same test for one of our telecom advertisers and again saw the same types of results. And when we started to look at even more competitive industries like telecom and particularly retail, you can really see the magnificent results they saw with a brand ad campaign. So if we look at the retail, they were only capturing, under 40% of the clicks. And their competitor, in fact, was getting more percent of the clicks when someone searched their brand between their own organic listing and their brand ad. And once our retail, this is a women's retail brand, once they added their own brand ad campaign, they were able to really capture and hold on to what looks like they're 90% of the clicks when someone searched under their brand, and really only losing that 10% rather than, the almost 50% before. Yeah,
that's a pretty dramatic increase there. And I think it's worth maybe reiterating that this is real data. This isn't. This is for specific brand queries that we've seen on our network. And first of all, that retail brand, you can see, they almost eliminate the clicks to competitors and more than double the clicks to their own website by advertising on the brand term. And when you think about the different types of brand queries, it's worthwhile to think about the degree of competitiveness in the business. Of course, retail is very, very competitive. Social network is probably very much less competitive, right? So those are kind of like extremes. It's also worth thinking about if the query reflects a subscription or ongoing relationship, or if it's more transactional, if it's somebody who's clearly looking for one particular location. Like if somebody searches for like Netflix login, for example, that person is probably going to go to Netflix, even if competitors place an ad in front of that user. It's also worth thinking about if the brand query is sort of like a proxy for a category, and that's what we see with this retail brand, that it's somebody that searches for a specific brand because that's very top of mind, but it's not necessarily that somebody is dedicated to actually buying from that particular brand. It's more that that's a top of mind brand name or top of mind query.
And then I just wanted to say this visual, when I look at it from, I'm looking at it kind of far away. Look at all of the bars on the left compared to all the bars on the right. So it's like the dark gray and the orange stacked on top of one another are much higher than the ones on the right. So the big key takeaway, like, you're going to capture a lot more if you do the brand on the left than if you don't.
Yeah.
Just boiling it down there.
Yes. And so what we want to show you now is, so like Lars mentioned before, this is real data from individual brands, advertisers on Bing ads. And so when we were doing this for these specific advertisers, Lars and his team decided to look at the verticals overall as well to see what we could find when we looked at a bigger picture. So Lars is now going to take you through what we saw when we analyzed doing brand campaigns across the travel industry.
Thanks, Francis. So we included all travel advertisers in this study, and we included all travel queries that had at least 1,000 queries per month. So that's a threshold, but everything is included within those thresholds. And this slide shows you the click yield to travel advertisers when they don't bid on their brand terms. This is average across all travel advertisers. And when we talk about click yield, that is out of 100 searches, how many clicks did the brand owner get in this example? So of 100 searches on a brand query, the brand owner would get an average 61 clicks. So 61 clicks per 100 searches. And you can see on the right-hand side, you see a typical screenshot. So this 61% number is not related to kayak. This is an average, but you see on the right side an example with kayak where you see somebody searching for kayak flights. There's a bunch of competitors on top who are advertising, and then you see kayak further down on the page. And this might be something of a category search where people are looking for flights in general. Kayak is top of mind, and they might be more or less likely to click on some of the competitors. And of course, as the brand owner gets 61% of the clicks, the competitors will get 39% of the clicks in this example.
So again, just to point out, it's not only are you not capturing the full percentage of the people who are doing this search with your brand term in it, you're losing a significant chunk of those searchers to your competitor.
Yeah, sorry, let me correct something that I said before. So this isn't the click yield, this is actually the percentage of clicks. So out of 100 clicks, the brand owner gets 61% or 61 clicks, and the competitor gets 39 clicks. So that's a split of the total clicks on that query. And so those numbers were averages across travel. And here we're showing some real examples with actual brand names redacted, but these are real queries. Where you can see that without a brand ad present, competitors captured nearly half of the clicks. So it's 27% for www.brand.com, and in the 40s for some of the other what we call brand modified queries, where you have a brand plus another search term. But think about it, like for brand.com, like there's somebody that's clearly looking for a very specific destination, right? But still, competitors are able to capture more than a quarter of those clicks that on that search. It's pretty astonishing.
Yeah, and particularly, and we'll mention this time and again during this webinar, but the amount of work and dollars and marketing that's gone into having a customer retain the www.brandname.com and the effort that they've done to do that search, to lose over a quarter, in fact, almost a third, is a huge loss after the investment that you've made for them to, know your brand name and be interested in going to your actual website as well. So you really don't want to lose that. And it's not only the opportunity to increase your leads, increase your customers, increase your conversion, like we've mentioned, it's really a way to retain your customers and your leads that you've already invested in if they are already using your brand term. So don't let your competitors, rob them from you and take them away from you.
So let's see what happens if the brand owner is bidding on its own brand terms. So as you remember, if the brand owner, this is average across travel vertical. If the brand owner doesn't advertise, they get 61% of the clicks. If they do advertise, then what we see is on average the brand owner gets 88% of the clicks. So that's actually a 45% growth in the total number of clicks that the brand owner would see. It's pretty significant, I would say.
Yeah, that's very significant. So if we break that 88% down.
Yeah, so the question remains, like, how much of the clicks do you now have to pay for? Like, if you don't advertise, of course, all your clicks are free. It's all through organic. If you do advertise, you're going to pay for some of those organic clicks, or the clicks that were organic, now they're not organic, now they're paid clicks. What we see is that it doesn't look all that bad. Yes, you are going to pay, you will cannibalize some of the organic clicks, but most of the clicks that you got for free when you didn't advertise, you still get for free when you do advertise. So you retain most of those go for free, and then you have a big chunk that is just incremental.
Yeah. So this seems to be, well, definitely when I've had conversations with advertisers and when I meet customers at events, this tends to be, the main argument against bidding on your brand is, and my background's actually in SEO. I've been doing paid search now 2.5 years, but before that it was SEO. And so even when I was in SEO, it was always a debate, the amount of money, energy, and time you're putting into, getting that mainline number 1, number 2, number 3 spot for your organic listing. Why would you pay then to, perhaps cannibalize that? And really what we saw time and again was that it was such a small percentage, and the fact that you were able to retain such a larger percentage of the overall clicks that were coming to that search results page, that really it was worth your time, and in fact helped you maintain your organic listing and made it still relevant and still popular.
It's like that old analogy, sometimes you have to take 1 step back to go 2 steps forward. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you'll see here is when you start running these tests for yourself, this overlap, in this example, the average within travel was about 18%, is not going to be high enough generally for you to shy away from bidding on your own brand, because the results of having that total 88% of the clicks is much stronger than the 61, and then adding on top of that the fact that those then are not going to your competitors makes them even more valuable.
Yeah, let's take a close look at that competitor angle that you mentioned.
Brilliant. So here's some data on that.
So what we saw is that if the brand owner does not advertise, competitors are getting 39% of the clicks. But if the brand owner do advertise, then the competitors will get 12% of the clicks. So that is less than 1/3.
Mm. So, I mean, you're within that 88%, what we saw on the previous slide there was where you will see a little bit of cannibalization into your organic clicks. But when you really start comparing the larger numbers against what your competitor is able to take from you, it shows that sacrifice or that paying for those additional clicks is so much more valuable.
Lars, we had a question come in that I thought maybe we could just touch on real quick. Would you clarify how you calculate the overlap percentage in clicks? Just if we were to go back to that slide just real quick, and that 18% is overlap.
Yeah, so what we saw is that if you advertise on the brand terms, 43% of the clicks, if you look at out of the 88% chunk, the 43% chunk is now organic and not paid for, while the 35% is paid clicks.
So that difference between 35 and 43?
It's the difference between
61, I'm sorry.
61 and 43.
Got it, yeah. Perfect, thank you.
So I'll jump back. So again, let's talk about what this then looks like versus your competitors when you're running your brand ad campaign.
Yeah, so this is some more real examples. If you remember, we were looking at some real examples of what happens if the brand owner is not advertising, where we saw for www.brand.com, if I remember correctly, 27% of clicks going to competitors on term that's like totally navigational, right? It's pretty astonishing. And this is a similar travel advertiser. These are both two very large major travel advertisers that are comparable. So it's not comparing apples and oranges here. All of a sudden on www.brand.com, instead of 27% of the clicks going to competitors, only 1% of the clicks are going to competitors. And this is some of the other examples. Remember back, the travel advertisers that didn't advertise have up to almost 50% of the clicks going to competitors. Here there's no more than 11% in this example going to competitors. So it's a pretty big difference. I'm pretty astonished, especially on the www.brand.com term, that we saw 27% going to competitors in the other example, and here we have only 1%.
Yeah, I mean, retaining those customers, you know, we've all heard in any business course, any business article we've ever read, that keeping a customer is far less expensive than acquiring new customers, and this is a strategy to make sure that you're doing that. You know, keeping those customers that are already interested in looking for you specifically, if they're doing a www.yourname.com, only losing, you know, 1% or less to your competitor is a phenomenal increase over the 27% you are losing.
That's a really good point, Francis. And you can think about this in the context of remarketing too, that you definitely want to remarket on your brand terms, so competitors don't steal your customers that have already visited your website, maybe already purchased from you. All of a sudden, if you're not there to capture them with an ad and they search for you, they might be going to competitors and become your competitors' customers instead.
Yeah. So that was a quick look at travel. We also, like we mentioned before, we did this study across the retail vertical and industry, and we also did it across financial services. And the same sort of study, we looked at 3 million impressions for retail searches and worked with retail advertisers in December. I was going to say of last year, but I realize now it's December. Not last year, the year before, still only 13 months ago, not too long ago. But we have the results of that study in the appendix of this presentation. So when you download it, you'll see it there. But we saw very similar things than what we saw in travel in terms of how they were able to increase their clicks.
Yeah, if anything, the results were even a little bit stronger than what we saw in travel. I think for travel, I think there's a pretty compelling case for bidding on your brand terms. For retail, that case was even stronger. So, yeah, like Francis said, slides are in the appendix.
Yeah, right? Yeah, the slides are there, so you can take a look through them. They're pretty much identical to the travel slides, just the numbers are representative of brand advertisers and some examples of retail advertisers. We just wanted to make sure we had enough time to show you how to run this experiment for yourself. So what I'm going to do is just a quick recap on what we've learned from the test we ran, and then Lars will take you through how you actually run this experiment for yourself. So I'm a massive sports fan, pretty much any sport out there. I love watching anything from like rugby and soccer and American football all the way to golf. I love watching golf. And so, you know, the major thing that you learn in sports, particularly team sports, is, you know, your great offense are going to win games here in Seattle. Obviously, big Seahawks fan, and so we know that Russell and his offensive team are great at winning games, but we would not have won the Super Bowl without our phenomenal defense team. And I think you see that across all sorts of sports. If you are looking for winning a championship, winning in the long term, you must have as strong a defense as you do an amazing offense.
And Brent, I have to say, I have to just chime in, Frances. This was my mantra. I was a soccer goalkeeper, so I held on to the fact that the defense won the championships, at least in my mind. I loved, you know, of course I love the forwards that always score and get all the, you know, glory and cheering, but I held on to that belief that, you know, we really need a strong defense. So.
Yeah, and that's true. And really you see the same thing in your brand term bidding strategy. Bidding on your brand terms, you know, it helps you deliver more clicks, it helps you deliver more leads, it improves your conversion, certainly. But what it also does, which frankly might even be more powerful to you based on how competitive your industry is that it absolutely means fewer clicks to your competitors. And it reduces that opportunity for your competitors to capture either existing customers or new customers, and that mind share that they're able to steal from you when you don't have a brand ad present. And you know, we've talked about this. You know, the risk there of not having it is not only fewer clicks on your organic, even if you have a strong SEO presence, you're going to get fewer clicks on your organic listing if you do not have a brand ad campaign. And like Lars and I mentioned earlier, you know, you put how much money, time, and energy into TV, radio, print, in-person events, perhaps sales at your store if you're brick and mortar, all of this marketing activity and lead generation, only to lose it at the last moment.
Yeah, it's definitely worth reiterating that a lot of people see search as the end of the marketing funnel, right? So you put all of this money into upstream marketing channels only to have your competitors capitalize on search to your brand. So basically you're paying to drive traffic to your competitors if you're not able to capture that end of the funnel clicks.
Yeah. So, you know, this also is a great strategy that allows you to sit down and connect with other teams. So if you have separate teams that are working on SEO, separate teams that are working on acquisition, separate teams that are working on paid search, it's a really, and someone who's worked on all three of those things, it's a really awesome opportunity to come together, work as a team, and ensure that search, and paid search in particular, is supporting the work of your SEO work, is supporting the work of your acquisition team, and not burning that money and not losing out on that customer that you've already put so much work into nurturing.
We just had that question, so stay tuned. We're going to teach you how to do an experiment and possibly help your company decide that.
Yes. So just wanted to do a quick overview. So what we saw when we did these larger studies across, these larger tests and experiments across industries as a whole, we looked at financial services, retail, and travel. Financial services, our average brand click lift was 33%. Retail, like Lars mentioned, was just astonishing, a 51% increase in click lift, and travel at 44%. So if you fall into any of these categories, these are the types of numbers you could see. These are the average across the industry. And talking about our awesome defense, here's what we saw. Competitor click loss. Massive in financial services at 57%, retail at 43%, and travel again at that 44%, really showing that not only are you increasing the opportunity for your ads and your organic listings to be clicked on, but you're also really shutting down the opportunity for your competitor to take those away from you.
We had a question to that point, Francis, come in from iCrossing. What is an average impression share a competitor receives when brand ads are not being displayed? So I think, in a way, this slide is directional in each vertical. And so if you don't actually run your brand ads, this is what you can pretty much see your competitors getting.
Yeah, so we haven't looked specifically at impressions. We've been focusing on clicks.
Mm-hmm.
Key point, impressions versus clicks.
We should have that data somewhere, so we might do that on a follow-up study possibly, but it's a very good question for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll take note of that question and see either in the blog post or in another webinar in this series if we can take a look at that.
Fantastic.
So want to jump into how do you do this for yourself? So, you know, this web series is all about the science of advertising. So how do you set up your experiment or your test to really use your own data to look at this phenomenon for yourself?
You know, one of the things that I, in working with Lars to produce this webinar that, you know, I came to understand very clearly, and, you know, from my college days of setting up actually psychological experiments, because my major was in psychology, is that you have to learn how to set up a statistically significant experiment. And to do that, make sure that you download the Ttest in the upper right-hand corner. It's an Excel template that Lars built for us, for you guys, with the formulas already built in. But you definitely want a statistically significant difference in your experiment so that it yields reliable results. And so, in order to set up your Ttest, just the general idea is you're going to want access to two data sets. So you're going to want the organic clicks and the paid clicks, and you want the amount of data for the organic clicks to be equal to the length that you're going to be running your experiments during the paid clicks. Is that right, Lars?
Yeah, so you need the organic click data as well as paid click data for the length of the experiment, and possibly also for a time period before the experiment equal to the length of the experiment. So if you,
perfect.
We'll get back to more details on the
that means
next couple
probably
of
partnering with your SEO team and
yes, you need access to the SEO click data for sure.
So tell us about the first type.
So we have there are two different ways that you can set up experiment to find the effect of bidding on the brand terms. One is to run brand campaigns on alternating days of the week. So that means that your brand ads will be active every other day. And you need to do this for at least 2 weeks. Possibly, you should probably do it for maybe 4 weeks, but at least 2 weeks because of the day of week effect. So you have one Monday with brand ads active, while the next Monday you would have them inactive. So you don't skew the results because of different patterns on different days a week. So the first thing that you need to do is to organize your brand keywords into one or more separate campaigns that only have brand keywords, and all brand keywords are contained into those campaigns. So you can apply targeting specifically to those brand campaigns. So once you have that organized, you should then go to Bing Ads Day of Week targeting to enable and disable brand campaigns every other day. And that's a targeting setting that lets you target individual weekdays. So you can, for example, for the first week, you enable the brand campaigns only on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Then you will, at the end of the week, you will have to go and change that setting because it doesn't let you alternate with alternating weeks. So the next week you would enable the brand campaigns on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Did I get that right, Francis?
Yes.
I think so.
Yes.
And then you run this for at least 2, maybe 4 weeks. It's got to be an even number of weeks. And then you compare each day's total brand clicks for the brand enabled days with the brand disabled days using Ttest. And as MJ mentioned, there's already a template for this. You can just fill in the numbers into the Excel template, and it will tell you
the calculation.
Do a calculation and tell you if the results are significant.
Yeah. So that was so this is looking at your brand clicks as the days of the week. And so once you collect that data, you've dropped it into the Excel template, you have your results. This is how you figure them out.
Yeah, so you want the t-value to be less than 0.1 to be statistically significant. And what that means is that there's only a 10% chance that these two data sets come from the same distribution, a 90% chance that there is actually a difference, which is what a normal threshold for determining statistical significance. And I think MJ, you put together the slides here.
Well, I alluded to the fact that if it isn't statistically relevant, chances are that you don't have a large enough sample set. So you're going to want to run the campaign longer to get more data. But there's also the other off chance that it's telling you not to run brand terms. There's that also option. Because
there's no difference between the total clicks that you get with the brand terms. You will basically get the same clicks through organic if you don't advertise in the brand. So that's the other alternative. Now, the results that we have seen for the absolute most part support the second bullet here that, well, maybe you didn't run it for long enough. But of course, if you have an experiment, you're set up to prove or disprove something. So there's also a possibility that actually there isn't an effect, right?
Exactly.
So,
exactly. We want to be fair.
Want to be fair.
Yeah, and also just to mention that the day of the week test is really good for SMBs rather than this one, the Geo.
Well,
correct?
Specifically for local businesses, right? Local. So that's the other way that that you can set up a brand experiment is to target different geographies and say, well, we're only going to run brand campaigns in certain geographies. And of course, if you're limited to a single or a few geographies, you can't do this. You have to use the day-a-week approach.
Yeah. Okay.
This is a good approach. The Geo approach is a good approach for national advertisers that advertise across all or many geographies. And here, what you need to start off with is to identify pairs of metro areas with similar customer profiles to your business. You can think about how do your customers differ, and you want to look at metro areas that are similar across those important attributes. It could be age, gender, interest, what have you, whatever is important for you. So you want pairs of metro areas with similar composition with regards to the attributes that are important for your customers.
Mm-hmm.
That make sense, MJ?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, please keep sending them. We'll get to them at the end.
So start with as many as you can identify. I think 20 pairs is probably a good number. So you have 40 metro areas total. And then from each pair, you have to randomly select one of the metro areas in each pair into what we call the treatment group, and one metro area from the other metro area from that pair would then go to control. And this has to be done randomly. And what's important is that you don't have a pattern in how you select it, right? That's why we say it's got to be random. You shouldn't select like if one of the metro areas in each pair always is a little bit larger or it skews one particular way. It's important that doesn't always go to the same group, if that be treatment or control. This should be done in a random way. And there's a link to a random number generator here that you can use. There's probably a million of them out there. You can just search for them on the internet. That shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah.
Then what you do is to measure combine organic and paid clicks by metro area before the experiment. And this has to be done in a time period that is the same as the duration of the experiment. So if you're running a 2-week experiment and you measure the combined organic and paid clicks, also the 2 weeks before the experiment. So what you want to do is you use that to set a baseline that you measure the total clicks during the experiment against. So you have if you're on a 2-week experiment, you look at the two weeks before the experiment, the total clicks the 2 weeks before the experiment. If you have a 4-week experiment, then you look at 4 weeks before the experiment, etc. I think 2 to 4 weeks is probably a good length to run the experiment. And as the final step, you enable the geotargeting on brand campaigns. So you put all the DMAs, the geographies that are assigned to the treatment group. Those are enabled for the brand campaign. So you only run your brand campaigns for the treatment geo areas.
So this is the same, whenever you run an experiment, whether it was in high school or college classes, you always had a control group, right? Yeah. You always had the group that you aren't modifying, so you can see those results, and then the groups that you are modifying or testing, so that you can compare them back and forth. And that's what you mean by the treatment.
Exactly. So the treatment group, geo areas, get brand campaigns enabled, and the control do not get brand control enabled. And for all of the geo areas that are outside the experiment, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
You can just do what you usually do.
Brilliant.
And just to remind you guys, in the upper right-hand corner is the resource list. This is what it looks like, so you can just go download that Ttest. And there's also other resources there. A few of you have asked for soft copies of the presentation. There's already a PDF there for you to download, so you can go ahead and do that. And there's also some pretty nerdy links there to more information on statistical relevance and Ttest.
So wanted to show you quickly, and we can have Lars chat about this as well, because he created this Excel document. This is just a screenshot of what you're going to see when you download that template. And because we've talked about two different ways to run the test, we included how to calculate for both of those. So when you open the Excel doc, you will see tabs along the bottom that let you run either day of the week, if you're running that version of the test, or geotargeting. And I'll give a little bit close-up look, and Lars can show you how to use this here.
Yeah, so for this tab, this is a geotargeting example. You have you see the yellow columns on the left side. That's where you put the total number of clicks in the pre-period before the experiment starts. As I mentioned, you have to look at the total number of clicks for each metro area in that time period. That's identical to the time period you want to run the experiment, but you look at the time period before the experiment starts, and that's what to set a baseline, and that's what you put on the left-hand side. So you see like the first upper left yellow cell. You put in the total number of clicks to Boston across paid. Sorry, I should say total number of clicks on brand queries to Boston on the upper left cell, then upper right cell. Boston is here paired with Philadelphia, so that's the first pair of metro areas. You have the total number of clicks on brand queries to Philadelphia, etc. down those two yellow columns, and then the two yellow columns further to the right. That is the total number of clicks on brand terms during the experiment period. So you put those numbers in there. You see out of those two columns, you can see the left column is the treatment, the right column is the control. Those are the metro areas that don't get the brand campaigns enabled. You just go through that column. Everything will populate once you fill in those yellow numbers, and then you see in the black rectangle underneath, you see the Ttest results. And in this example, there's a 0.04, the t-value is 0.04, which is a statistically significant value. You see the average click increase is 6%, which is, I should point out this is fake data. This is not real data. We expect the average click increase to actually be much, much bigger than that. This is just basically random numbers. So
yeah. Just to be able to show you, once you run your reports through whatever analytical tools you're using, whether it's Google Analytics or something else, once you run your reports, these are the columns that you drop your data into. Right. You'd obviously need the paid click reports from your Bing Ads campaign, and then the calculations are already there and will spit out the Ttest result. Again, it's showing you if this is statistically significant data, and then we'll also spit out the average click increase that you are likely to see when you do run a Bing Ads brand campaign. So just another sort of recap. When you're running an experiment, my sister is a chemical engineer, so I went to her and chatted with her when she was in college.
I am too.
You are too? Oh, yeah. So I was like, Margaret, I need some experiment terms. When you're running an experiment in your lab, what are the things that you have to keep an eye on? She's like, oh, well, we always had safety considerations. So this is from my sister. So safety considerations Really, it just means, hey, these are reminders for you. Like MJ said, you do need to have patience when you're running an experiment, any type of experiment. So making sure that you give yourself the time to collect the data that's going to be the strongest data set that you can use. This is really basic, but I have definitely done, a ton of research on a topic to decide, hey, is this something I should be doing or not? And then never really followed through with the implementation. And so we really just wanted to remind you, after you've gone through all of this work, you've shown your patience, you've collected your data, go ahead and implement it. Make sure that you set up the opportunity if it's the fact that you might need more budget. For example, if you're an agency, you worked with your customer to make sure that you can get that. If you need more budget to be able to take from other campaigns and move to this one, just make sure that you're set up to be able to implement, particularly if your results are showing a really great increase in your click rates. And then wash, rinse, and repeat. All of us who work in search know that this is not a static industry. It's changing all the time, both on the SEO side and on the paid search side. And so this is probably not a test that you will do once and never revisit. It might be something that you want to do once a year. It might be something that you want to do during a slow season versus a busy season. It's certainly not something you need to be doing monthly, but make sure that it's something that's scheduled into the auditing or the quality checks that you do on your paid search campaigns overall. If you do kind of an audit yearly, this is probably one of the things you want to be looking at. So make sure that it's built into your process and that your teams and your customers are aware that it's something you're really taking advantage of. So I'm going to hand back to MJ. We want to make sure we have enough time for questions. Like MJ mentioned, whatever questions we don't get to answer for the rest of this hour, I will be writing a blog post. It'll go live on Thursday, and it'll include the most frequently asked questions as well as anything we don't get to hear. And you can always tweet us at Bing Ads or myself at Francis DR. Lars, you're also?
Yes, Lars Hirsch.
Lars Hirsch at Twitter. And so we're always available on there to help you either with these types of questions or really anything else about Bing Ads.
Thank you so much, Lars and Francis. I appreciate that. So I just want to recap real quick and make sure I heard what you guys have been saying this whole time. And that's you got to first decide what type of experiment is right for your business. So the geo versus the days of the week, and then just have patience because you may not have enough data in the first time around, and just you'll probably have to do the experiment several times to reach a statistically relevant pool of data that you need. The other thing that I wanted to mention is someone actually asked a question that is going to take more time to answer, but we live in a very complex world and there's a lot of variables going on. So we're not saying like this one single test is really going to be a real clear cut, like 100%, not considering like maybe there's news about your brand that comes into play. You have to really kind of think about a lot of different things, and that question's very interesting, and we're going to have to dig into that a little bit more about, all the variables. So thank you for that question. But really, use the results to expand your brand keywords if the experiment's telling you to. It's playing offense and defense, as we know in sports, really helps you win championships, not just games. So hopefully you have now the information to go run your own experiment and to finally put the office debate to rest with maybe your SEO team, I'm not sure, to bid or not to bid. So hope you guys have gotten some great information. Let's get into the Q&A because we do have a ton of questions. We've got a nice good chunk of 10 minutes. Let's see. Our first question. Let's see. Here we go. Do you see one, Lars, that you'd like to pick?
Yeah, so I saw a couple of questions around targeting your competitors' brands. There were several of those. There was also a question about what to do if you're a SEM and you don't really have a known brand name. And I think all of those questions are just looking at the same data from a different angle. it's obvious that targeting your competitor's brand is something that works to drive traffic to your website, especially one, if the competitor is not bidding on his or her own brand terms or brand name. And second, if there's a very competitive vertical. If you're going to try to be a social network, maybe it doesn't pay to advertise on Facebook.com because people that search for Facebook will go to Facebook because that's what they're looking for. But if you're in a very competitive vertical, a very competitive segment of retail or travel or financial services, you will probably be successful at driving traffic to your website by bidding on their competitors' brands. Well, of course, follow the policies that are relevant in your country, like in the US. Of course, you shouldn't put competitors' brand names in your actual ad, but you can bid on competitors' brand queries.
Right. Yes. So you can bid, and this, I saw this question come up. You can bid against competitors' brand terms and brand names and the different brand modifiers that we spoke about, like brand name flights, brand name dresses, etc. But you cannot use their brand name in your ad copy. This, not sure if I should share this, but currently you can use your competitor's brand name in your custom URL text, and that is a strategy I have seen very competitive brands use. So, you know, you put in your destination URL that's hidden, and then you have your custom URL that's visible. You can get creative there in how you use different brands' terms. You have to be careful still, and to be honest, I'm not sure how long that will continue. There is a case pending in Europe. Actually, Ryanair is suing Google over that currently, so I'm not sure where that will end up. But if you really want to get savvy with your paid search versus your competitor, you know, you can. And
I don't know. Do unto others as they have do unto you. That you would like. That's my motto.
We should mention that in Europe, the policies are a little bit stricter than in the US too.
Yeah.
Our policies do not allow bidding on competitors' brand terms in some countries in Europe.
Correct. Yeah. So if you're a global advertiser, you may have different strategies in different markets. If you're a national advertiser, you can definitely get competitive here in the U.S. Some of the other questions we saw were there the test results on the against different verticals and industries. So I saw someone had asked about education. Someone else had asked about, I'm not sure if I saw another specific example, but Lars's team has looked at some others.
So we have data on all, but we haven't distilled. This is sort of like a deep dive into 3 of the major verticals for us. Not sure if we are going to produce additional charts and slides and more verticals. That could come in the future. I don't know. But right now we focus on these 3 verticals.
So if there is a vertical that you would like to see them do another study on, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yep. If you get enough requests, then we might.
Just tweet your requests for sure.
And also, just to mention, if you have a Bing Ads account team, they have access to this data. And so you can work directly with your Bing Ads account team to dig into some more data if you're a different industry.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Francis. Yes, you can get personalized data through your Bing Ads account team. They have access to all the data on every single major brand query. Again, same threshold, 1,000 searches per month. So you can look at the individual queries and whatever you want.
Yeah. Do you have test results for incremental clicks? We have answered that question on other verticals or industries, so we just answered that. Do you have examples of impact on not bidding on branded when the competition is also not bidding?
So we do have, so that is also part of this study, and the impact is smaller. You would still drive incremental clicks if you bid on your brand term. All of a sudden you will own both the ad space as well as the top organic space, and you will still push some of the competitors' organic results further down on the page. But the impact is definitely smaller than when there is a competitor ad on top.
Yeah, we did see an example, again, specifically in retail, which tends to be fiercely competitive, that even if the other brand isn't bidding, they don't have paid ads for that result, they still will have organic results. And like Lars says, you still will lose clicks to those competitor organic results with or without ads from either of you. Without ads from either of you. But once you, what we did see is once that brand started their own brand bidding campaign, they were able to increase the number of clicks coming to them and decrease any risk of losing those customers to their competitors.
Yeah, it's pretty intuitive. Think about just owning more of the space above the fold, right?
Yeah.
More of the page space above the fold, and your competitor owning less of the above the fold space.
It's all about that mind share, and I think, you know, with MJ's background in psychology as well, you do see that. And when I was in the SEO world, we always talked about having the magic 1, 2, 3, which was the ad, the top organic listing, and then a referral listing, right? A result speaking about you, but from a valued third party. So having those 1, 2, 3 is always going to increase the mind share, and that is going to help you retain customers as well as capture new ones.
So I have another question that's kind of interesting, and I was thinking a second version to this question. The question is, does the data figure in when there is a news story about the company brand? And my second part of that question is, besides our data, what if you are running an experiment and something happens and your brand gets splashed all over the news? Do you stop the experiment and reset?
So it depends. So the assumption is that that news story should affect the treatment and control groups equally. So if you're running in treatment and control geographies, and this has a huge effect on one particular geography, like one particular area, you won't want to exclude the pair that area is a part of. So say we had Boston and Philadelphia pair, that's treatment control, something happens that's only relevant in Boston, you want to just exclude that. But if it affects across the board, then you're good, because the experimental design will take care of it. So it will affect treatment and control in a similar way across the board, and the results will even out.
Yeah. Great. Love that. Thanks.
So kind of to follow up on that question, there was a question, Lars, is there ever a time when you should stop doing brand campaigns? Like, do you reach a threshold where it's no longer necessary? My assumption is to say no, because as soon as you stop, you're going to start losing the advantage that you've gained.
I agree with that, Francis, that in general you probably don't want to stop doing brand campaigns. But if you want to test the waters, then you should run one of these experiments. You can think about it as a reverse setup. So instead of trying to measure the effect of advertising or continuing brand instead of measuring the effect of introducing brand ads, you can think about it as measuring the effect of stopping your brand campaigns, right? So you can say the treatment is not having the brand ads active, and it's basically the same setup, and you can, again, get the results of what happens if you stop advertising on your brand.
Great. Want to respect everyone's time. We have probably about 45 more seconds, and I wanted to remind everyone that if you have additional questions, just tweet us with the hashtag #AskBingAds, and we'll definitely follow up, #AskBingAds. And it wouldn't hurt to also throw in #BingAdsWebinars so we know it's connected to the webinar. And also coming up, we have a February webinar that you can already sign up for with Lars, Francis, and myself. And it's the Kevin Bacon approach to keyword attribution. Totally fun and interesting way to look at keywords that lead up to that last click conversion keyword. So feel free, sign up. We hope to see you on the next one. And thank you so much, everyone. As soon as this webinar is over, we would love your feedback. A survey will pop up. Thanks again, and thanks for the feedback.
Thanks, everyone. See you on Twitter.
Thanks, everyone.